Do you agree with Elon Musk that the coronavirus is overblown? Should we be in lockdown? I did a whole series of videos, 3 of them on propaganda, where I go into exhaustive detail on that topic, and I'd highly encourage you to look in that. And we even have a doctor in the chat who's quite prominent in the Cardano community. Succinctly, as I've said repeatedly, I feel that we should use a science and fact-based approach to handling this crisis. And all data and evidence are pointing in a trend, in a direction that people who get this tend to be resilient to it, and that the majority of people who get it have mild to asymptomatic cases, and that this only seems to be affecting certain subsets of the population, which probably can be isolated and still safely allowing the rest of the people to get back to work. And this is based on data from Iceland, the Netherlands, New York City, California, all the places we looked at antibody tests, and just common sense about how epidemiological models work and how viruses spread. Frankly, to coordinate a global lockdown was too hard. So there were many cases where lockdown did not occur. And yet, despite that, we're not really seeing a big difference between the lockdown and the unlocked down places. And what happens is that there's media manipulation with the numbers. So, for example, they say Iowa is experiencing the fastest rate of increase. There's only been, in the last time I checked, like 130 deaths in Iowa out of a 3 million person population from coronavirus. And furthermore, their testing infrastructure was some of the worst in the nation, and now they're finally getting it online. So are we seeing a dramatic increase in cases because everybody in Iowa is not in quarantine, or are we seeing it because they're finally testing people for the first time? And that's saying nothing about the nature of that case fatality rate. I've seen a lot of reports where people are potentially reporting deaths as COVID that were other things because there's just a lot of pressure to do that, or perhaps a financial incentive to do that. A lot of this stuff is just like monkey business all around. It's going to take years to sort out all this monkey business. But my opinion is that I really firmly believe we need to seriously start getting people back to work, because the consequences of being locked down for too long means that we will have an equal or greater amount of death, a substantially greater amount of human misery, and potentially global instability. In fact, even nation states collapsing. And of course, that results in even more death if we keep the lockdown going on too long. You want an example of that? Look at Iraq. What caused the rebellion? Was it hatred of America, or the fact that we had a 30% unemployment rate in Iraq for a long time? Idle hands do the devil's work. And that's a saying you got to remember all the way through. And if you do something that creates suddenly 30 million unemployed people in your economy, that's going to be super problematic if that persists for a long period of time. And those people aren't going to take it. And there's just too much stuff going on to allow this to go on too long. So segregate populations, use a fact-based approach, look to where the data takes you. And frankly, we are starting to get reasonable therapeutics from remdesivir to others. So there's just no reason to continue doing this long term. And it's not clear if a vaccine is going to work. There's already 30 different strains of coronavirus in the wild. You ask your question, why doesn't the flu virus go away if we can make vaccines? Because by the time we make the vaccine doesn't work anymore for some of the strains that populate through. These are very mutagenic. So similarly, by the time a vaccine comes out for the original strain, it's a moving target. So unless they come up with some magic, it's very unlikely that coronavirus is going to go away in 2021. It's potentially a double flu season now for doctors to contend with for years to come. A double season. So you get your corona season and you get your influenza season. So what? We're just going to fucking live in indefinite lockdown? It's a crazy prospect. You have to at some point accept that life is dangerous. My grandfather lived with polio in that whole reality. There was a president who had it. Nixon had brothers who had tuberculosis and died of it. Life goes on, the economy can function, humanity can function. We still went to the moon, despite the fact that medicine wasn't as evolved.